Good afternoon, Trinidad and Tobago. On behalf of the Oilfield Workers Trade Union and the Joint Trade Union Movement, we are happy to be here with the Movement for Social Justice to commemorate the 40th anniversary of Bloody Tuesday. On the 18th of March 1975, a very important historical moment took place in Trinidad and Tobago. It is where the working class actualized themselves in our pages of history. They began a march for peace, bread, and justice. That moment in time, that moment in our country's history, really set the foundation for what will be many of the social benefits, terms, and conditions that people enjoy today. But we are here to commemorate this important event 48 years later on the backdrop of a situation where there are very aggressive attempts to roll back the terms and conditions and to roll back the social gains that came about as a result of the sacrifice that those workers made, those ordinary men and women who challenged the status quo, who challenged the power of capital, who challenged the power of the state to ensure that their voices are heard, to ensure that their rights are respected and taken into consideration. Today, workers are faced with extreme exploitation. Workers are faced with a situation where the state is using its power to take away those terms and conditions, to take away the social benefits that were gained, that were won through struggle. And this is why the celebration of this moment is even more relevant today in 2023, when we consider the state of workers in Trinidad and Tobago. The Oilfield Workers Trade Union and the Joint Trade Union Movement stand with the Movement for Social Justice in commemorating this particular moment in history. And we would like to again state and to emphasize its relevance even in 2023. When we consider the cost of living, when we consider the struggle that ordinary men and women have to go through on a daily basis just to survive, just to put bread on the table. We want to stand with the M.S.J. in saying to Trinidad and Tobago that as a class, as a working class, we have to stand up as those did some 48 years ago. They were willing to take on the state, and we have to be willing to take on the state and to take on capital, because if we allow them to take away our benefits, to take away our rights, to take away our dignity, to take away our right to be respected as a human being and as a citizen in Trinidad and Tobago, then we would have gone back 100 years ago. So we stand today on the 40th anniversary of Bloody Tuesday to say that as a working class, we must continue to strive and to struggle to ensure that we protect what we have and to advance to improve our quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commodore Z. Warwick, the Treasurer and Chief Education Research Officer of the Oilfield Workers Trade Union. A very good afternoon to members of the media who have been able to join us this afternoon here at this media conference on the steps of the Oilfield Workers Trade Union Paramount building. A very good afternoon to sisters and brothers, M.S.J, OWTU, who have joined us in this media conference, and of course, very good afternoon to all who have joined the live stream that is taking place at this time. Now, I was not here in San Fernando on the 18th of March 1975. I was a student at the University of the West Indies, and I will say what I and other progressive students were doing on the 18th and 19th of March in solidarity with oil and sugar workers, and even before the 18th of March. But let me just back up a little bit, because sugar workers and cane farmers began a struggle in 1974. Sugar workers for a significant increase in their wages. At that time, wages in the sugar industry were very, very low. Cane farmers were fighting for an increase in the price per ton of cane that they supplied to Tate and Lyle, because in 1974 and 1975 there was no Caroni Limited. There was Tate and Lyle, a multinational company British owned. In 1974-75, there was no Petrotrin, or there was Texaco, which was owner of the refinery, multinational American company Texaco owning the refinery and a number of the producing fields in this country. And so we had a struggle, and the leaders of 4 trade unions, George Weeks, President General of the Oilfields Workers Trade Union, Joe Young, President of the Transport and Industrial Workers Union, Basio Pandey, President General of the All Trinidad Sugar Estates and Factory Workers Trade Union, and Rafiq Shah, President General of the Island-wide Cane Farmers Trade Union, the ICFTU, brought oil workers, transport workers, sugar workers, cane farmers, and others together in mass struggles. And so 1974 saw struggles in the sugar industry. 75 oil workers decided that they too were going to go on strike because the price of oil had gone up in 1973, October, a massive increase in the price of oil. And with that, the profits of oil companies skyrocketed. And oil workers in Trinidad and Tobago said that the share of the profits or the wealth generated by these companies that were going to the company must be more fairly shared to labor. And therefore oil workers said that they wanted a significant increase in the price of their labor in wages and salaries to compensate for the inequality that was taking place with the rapid rise in oil prices and the wealth that was going to the multinationals as a result. And on the 18th of February 1975, there was a massive rally at Skinner Park in San Fernando. And many people say that was one of the largest ever rallies in the history of the country. Skinner Park was ram-cram. 40,000 people gathered in Skinner Park. And on that day, in 1975, the United Labour Front was born, not as a political party initially, but as a trade union grouping, a trade union rally. And the leaders then decided to go a step further and organize a march for peace, bread and justice, starting here at Paramount Building with a route taking them into Port of Spain that would have ended on the 19th of March. Thousands of workers gathered on the morning, and after prayers were said and short statements by the leaders, they set off. Now the original route was to take them, work the march from Paramount Building, left at the corner where there's now a traffic light. There would have been a traffic light then, the corner of Circular Road and the Napoli Mumbiao Road, to the roundabout, and then left onto the bypass to Pointe-a-Pierre, Marabella, and up the Southern Main Road. They were going to stop at a particular point for the day and resume, and then continue along the Southern Main Road to Curep, and then Eastern Main Road into Port of Spain. The then Commissioner of Police was Tim May, and May said there will be no march. And that morning, when Rafiq Shah was making his way here to Paramount Building, he noticed, being a former person in the military, he noticed that police officers were stationed on the grassy knoll just opposite the Moripo police station. For those of us in San Fernando, we know where that is. And he realized that if the marchers went that way towards the roundabout, they would have been ambushed and people may in fact have been shot and killed. And so without anybody knowing, except the leaders, they turned right at the corner and went along Royal Road to Coffee Street into San Fernando. The police on that day were led by then Assistant Commissioner of Police Dennis Ramdwar. He regrouped his officers and went Rushford Street and came up Prince of Wales Street to stop the march on Coffee Street by Susamacha Church. And that is where the marchers were attacked with tear gas and batons. People were beaten. A number of persons were arrested, including George Weeks, and others were arrested. There were persons, including non-union leaders, there were attorneys at law, lawyers in those days, who were also tear gassed and beaten and arrested. And the march was broken up. Some people tried to regroup and tried to head up towards Coover, and the police repeatedly broke up that march. We as students had already plastered the university with slogans in solidarity with oil and sugar workers, calling for the nationalization of Texaco and Tate and Lyle. We said Texaco and Tate and Lyle must go. We organized on the morning of the 19th to take the student body out of the campus to go into Port of Spain. And Burroughs and the flying squad blocked our exit at what was then the northern entrance to the campus. And so we couldn't get out of the campus. And we had to return. We had a vigil all day on the 19th, and Basil Pandey actually came into the campus at night and addressed the students on the library steps on the night of the 19th of March. That police repression on that day must never be forgotten. But that struggle of the workers and farmers in 1975 yielded tremendous success. All workers got a huge increase. They went on strike, but it was not called a strike. They came out, Texaco workers came out to pray for peace, bread, and justice, and they stayed out for some 57 days out of the job without pay, and eventually got a very significant increase in their wages and salaries. Sugar workers got a 100% increase. Cane farmers got a significant increase in the price of cane. So the sacrifice that was made on Bloody Tuesday yielded real tangible benefits and demonstrates the power of people taking positive action, workers taking action, and being on the streets. That was a concrete demonstration of that power of people being on the streets. Just like the workers in France have been on the streets against an increase in pension, just like doctors and nurses and teachers in the UK have gone on strike and taken protest action in defense of their interests. We in Trinidad and Tobago have had a long history of that kind of struggle, and that is why we're doing this today. Because if we don't know our history, if we don't know where we have come from, we wouldn't know where we are going. And we have to raise our consciousness, which is about the revolution of the mind that we in the M.S.J. constantly speak about. And that revolution in mind must start with young people knowing that 48 years ago, their parents or their grandparents got beaten and tear gassed in a march for peace, bread, and justice, which yielded benefits such that they as young people got better jobs or were able to go to university and so on. Sugar workers were able to go down San Fernando on High Street and so on into Kirpelani's and buy furnitures and appliances that they never had before as a result of Bloody Tuesday. Similarly with cane farmers, oil workers were able to look forward to buying their own homes and so much more. So it also yielded the nationalization of Tate and Lyle because we got Caroni. It yielded the nationalization eventually of Texaco and eventually got Petrotrin. And we want to say, of course, that the closure of Petrotrin's refinery and the retrenchment of all the workers by the Rowley government in 2018 was one of the biggest economic crimes that this country has ever seen. The closure of Caroni was another huge economic crime then by the Manning P&M government, both by P&M governments, it must be said. So, going forward, after March 18th, workers gathered here, and when the strike struggles came to an end, they gathered here in Paramount building in joint Casabos and unanimously agreed in January of 1976 to transform the ULF as a trade union rally into a political party because they recognized that there'll be no fundamental change in this country until those who labor hold the reins of power. That was what happened coming out of this whole process. And of course, there'll be many ups and downs in that political journey since then. But the truth of 1975, the truth of that decision in 1976 of workers saying those who labor must hold the reins of power, and that workers, we the workers, have power, but we give it to the politicians once every 5 years, and then they use that power to attack the very people who put them there in office. We are now saying as the M.S.J. that it is time, given the inequality in this society, given the hardships, the fact that there are tens of thousands of people who are unemployed, high food prices, higher gas prices, transportation. Now we are facing high electricity and water rates and so on. All of these problems that people are facing, trade unions being attacked on the workplace, companies closing down, and so much more. All of these things that we are facing today points to the truth of 48 years ago, that we have to take disciplined mass action in defense of our interests and move to the point of that consciousness, that revolution of the mind, where we say that those who labor must hold the reins of power. Because today, the economic circumstances are no different from 1975. We don't have Texaco and we don't have Tate & Lyle, but there is BP and Shell and BHP, well now Woodside, and so many others. And we have other multinational corporations, Royal Bank has come back in, and so much more. And the local conglomerates, the Massey's and the Ansel McCall. In those days there were other names, but the same owners and controllers of economic power remain. And they finance the parties, and they have one party card, you know, these owners and controllers of economic power. Their party card named PIP, Party in Power. And so they butter the bread on both sides. UNC, PNM, whoever wins, their interests are secure. And therefore we have to disrupt that system and change the arrangement of who controls political power. It must no longer be those who are in the back pockets of the economic controllers or the controllers of economic and political power. We have to change it so that those who labor hold the reins of power, and that is why today is so important. Thank you very much.
Any questions? All right, comments if we could office. The M.S.J, the OWTU, and the joint trade union movement will continue the struggle for peace, bread, and justice. Long live the working class of Trinidad and Tobago.
Long live.
Long live the trade union movement.
Long live.
Long live the progressive movement of Trinidad and Tobago.
Long live. Forward ever.
Backward never. Forward ever.
Backward never. Thank you very much.
Sa globe, touching on